Most coaches have subscribed to a belief that getting a full roster of dream clients is a marketing problem, that the answer is a better funnel or a better offer or a better DM script. And so they pour more into all of that. But the clients they're getting still drain them. The sales calls still have people who haggle, who ghost you, who make you question why you built this thing in the first place. But here is what I've watched happen across more than 2,000 hours of one-on-one mindset work. Coaches going from $9,000 a month to $43,000 a month. From stuck in a rut and not able to put gas in his car to $96,000. From driving for Lyft to pay bills to $20,000 in a month. They didn't find the perfect funnel. Instead, they changed the frequency they were operating from. And then everything downstream of that changed too. So you're not chasing clients because your marketing is broken. You're chasing clients because the frequency you are operating at requires you to chase. And as long as you keep operating at that frequency, it does not matter how many new ads you run, how many DMs you send. You will get clients who match the frequency you are broadcasting from. So in this video, I'm going to show you what frequency actually means. And we're going to keep this plain language, nothing woo about it. Right? We're going to talk about why the clients you're attracting right now are an exact mirror of the state you're operating from, whether you realize it or not. And how to start, brace yourselves, I'm going to say it, raising that frequency so that the people you actually want to work with start finding you, instead of you having to go out there and drag them in. Now, before I go any further, I know what you might be thinking when you hear the word frequency. You're thinking crystals. You're thinking someone burning sage and telling you to raise your vibration. That's fair. Most people using that language are being either vague or performative, and at the core, they are actually using it to avoid real-world action. So let me give you the version that is grounded in reality, because it's grounded in actual mechanical physics. In 1665, the 17th century, a Dutch physicist named Christian Huygens was laid up sick in bed watching two of his pendulum clocks that were mounted on the wall at the foot of his bed. They were mounted on the same wall, and the curious thing was happening. Regardless of where each clock had been started, they kept falling into sync with each other, like swinging in opposite directions in perfect unison. He sealed the room. Well, the clocks anyway, but he sealed it all off, no air currents. And it still happened. He eventually theorized there would be imperceptible vibrations traveling through the wall they shared. Couldn't prove it at the time, though. Was laughed out of some room, so he called it an odd kind of sympathy, were Huygens' words. Turns out what Huygens had stumbled on 3 centuries before we had the language for it was the law of entrainment. The principle that 2 or more rhythmic systems, when placed near each other, will synchronize, and they will always sync to the most powerful, most stable rhythm in the room. Always. The HeartMath Institute has since spent decades measuring what Huygens observed in those clocks. The human heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet outside the body in every direction. Your emotional state is literally encoded into that field and broadcast into the room around you, and further, for all we know. It looks different during calm than during fear, different during presence than during anxiety. You're not just feeling your emotions, you're literally transmitting them. This is, you think some people might be psychic, or maybe they're just downregulated enough to actually feel those things. The room around you is picking up on your frequency the same way those clocks picked up on each other's. And whoever's running the most grounded, most coherent, most stable rhythm sets the tone for everybody else in the room. That is your frequency. A measurable field you are broadcasting into every room you enter. every sales call you get on, every piece of content that you put out. And the clients who respond to that broadcast are the ones who are vibrating at the same frequency you are, or at very least, one very close that's easily to entrain to yours. But here's the part most entrepreneurs like to shut their ears off when anybody tries to explain to them. When you're chasing clients, you're operating from a state of need. And need, guys, need has a frequency. It's tight. It's a little too eager. It's laced with that, like, please say yes. I'm going to pre-count my sales calls and think I have this much revenue coming in, even when your words don't say that. Everyone on the other end of that state can feel it, even if they can't quite name it. And they respond to it, usually by going quiet or slow or sideways on you. Like things just don't seem to line up. The word abracadabra. Somewhere along the way, somebody put it in a top hat and made it a magic trick. But it was never a trick. It traces back to Aramaic abracadabra. With my word, I create. Or in some translations, I create as I speak. And the reason that translation survived across languages and centuries is that it kept being true. Words don't just describe reality, they shape it. At the base of your brain sits your reticular activating system, your RAS. Think of it as your brain's internal algorithm, if you will. Whatever you feed it, it goes on a search and edit mission to locate more of that. Buy a new car. Suddenly you see that car everywhere. The RAS doesn't fact check what you feed it. It doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a thought about threat. It responds to the language you run on, the words you speak out loud, and more critically, this is the part most people miss when they post Pinterest affirmations on their wall, more critically, the ones you repeat internally without even noticing. This is where entrepreneurs say, oh, I understand that. Yeah, that's the trademark of not actually looking at what you're saying internally. So here's the mechanism. When you're operating from need, your reticular activating system is running a need script. And need broadcast at the field level is what your potential clients are feeling because you've said a word of substance. They pick it up in the first 30 seconds. And the clients who answer that broadcast are the ones who are also operating from need, who haggle, who ghost, who train you, who need convincing every step of the way. The ones who, quite frankly, make you fall out of love with your business. And here's the thing, they're not bad clients. They're calibrated clients. Your broadcast literally called them in. There was a time where I lauded my ability to close any client in my business. I'd strong-arm sell someone into a package they didn't absolutely need and that I knew in my heart would end up falling off. I got off on the idea of closing the hard sale. And so I kept attracting and enrolling clients who took more energy than I had available to give and who were just absolutely horrible fits for the environment. And all this is what I mean when I say abracadabra. With my word, I create. You are constantly creating, constantly broadcasting, whether you know it or not. The business you are in right now is a direct reflection of the state you have been operating from. And until that state changes, nothing downstream will change in any way that sticks. You'll forever just be polishing a turd. Might look good on the outside, it's still a turd on the inside. So here's how to identify what frequency you're operating from. And more importantly, I'll also show you how to shift it to start attracting your dream clients rather than accidentally pushing them away. I want you to do something while you're watching this. Look at the clients you have right now. Not the ones you say you want. The ones you actually have on your roster, and look at their patterns. How easy or hard they are to work with. How quickly they paid. How much they trust your process. how they talk to you in the DMs, and whether they actually hear what you say. How you feel, most importantly, how you feel when their name comes up on your calendar. That's a direct readout of the frequency you're operating from. Huygens clocks don't lie. When you put a number of pendulum clocks in a room together, they all sync to the largest, most stable one. Which one is that? The biggest clock in the room. It's not trying to influence the others. It doesn't have to. Its coherence does it automatically. The ones around it simply match it because that is the law. And the same thing's happening in your business. The clients you attract are syncing to the rhythm that you are running. If that rhythm is anxious, proving, needing, the clients who show up will absolutely match that. I promise you. Your clients are not random. They are calibrated. If your roster is full of people who drain you, the broadcast that brought them in is what needs to change. Not your niche, not your price, not your offer, the broadcast. And look, this does not mean you are a bad coach or a bad person. It means you've been operating from a state that you probably didn't even know was optional. Every serious entrepreneur goes through this exact pattern. The ones who break through, though, are the ones who stop blaming the market for what they're attracting. And they start looking at what they're broadcasting. Your current clients are not a verdict on your worth. They're a mirror you can use to find and change the thing that is actually movable, which is the frequency you've been operating from. Here's what I've watched happen when a client actually moves their frequency. And not like the woo theory, the real pattern. When Taylor and I first connected, he knew a shift was needed in his business, but he kept running up against it and couldn't quite tell what it was until we peeled back the layers of stories that he was carrying so that he could operate with true clarity. Instantly, he took the action that he had known deep down he needed to do, the one that he would sit around tables and go, yeah, I think it's time to switch to this. He actually did it. And within a couple months, he had went from $9,000 in a month to $43,000 in a month with dream clients, with people who had similar hobbies to him, who he enjoyed connecting with. Right? It's more than just the numbers, the business that he then was able to run. When Brooks and I connected, he had just spent multiple 5 figures on a coaching program that, full disclosure, works for some people, but it fell flat for Brooks. And he was in a 2-year downtrend. He had a $41,000 month over 2 years ago. And you look at his Stripe graph, it was going down. Well, a couple months in, Brooks hit a record month. And then the month after that, he hit another record month. He collected $50,000 in less than 30 days. And what did we change? Nothing. Brooks actually sent me a message. He's like, dude, the crazy thing is I've barely changed any way that I'm actually operating my business. But these leads are better. These clients are better. I'm closing more sales. I'm getting complimented on how authentic I am. I didn't teach Brooks anything about business. He already knew it all. Enough anyway. What we did is we shifted the frequency by pulling out the stories that were holding it down. Neither of these guys found a magic tactic. The marketing did not change enough to account for the scale of what shifted. What changed was the frequency they were operating from. And the market answered differently because the broadcast was different. So what is the frequency you are actually trying to move toward? Let me give you the components, because this is not just be more confident. It's much more specific than that. These are language archetypes. And the first one is switching out soft talk for solid talk. When you're chasing clients, you are almost certainly running a soft talk script. Words like maybe, kind of, I'll try, hopefully, should. Every soft word is a signal to your own reticular activating system and to the person across from you that you don't actually believe what you're saying. The person who says, "Do you maybe want to work together sometime?" does not get the client. Person who speaks from certainty does. Soft talk lets your pendulum swing loose. Solid talk is calibrated. The second component here is switching out projections for reflections. Okay, projections are words that take power away from us and place it in the hands of everyone else. The market is rough. Clients don't value this. My team never executes. Every projection is a signal to your reticular activating system, your RAS, to scan for more evidence that the world is doing this to you. And reflections flip that. What am I doing that is producing this result? That's the language of someone creating their reality instead of reacting to it. And it broadcasts a fundamentally different field. The third component is one that sits under all of it. And I learned this from a man who has spent his life studying the ancient Aramaic and Hebrew languages. So in Hebrew, Aleph is the first letter, the silent letter, the depth of the presence beneath any word. Then you have Beit, the word itself. And Mark Gaffney describes it this way. The betrayal of the word is when the word doesn't ornament the silence, when the word doesn't hold up the silence, when the word becomes alienated from what is actually true inside the person speaking it. You felt both kinds of people. The person whose words land in your chest because something real is underneath them. And the person whose words, however polished, feel like they're covering something up. The difference isn't vocabulary at this point. It's whether the body and the word are telling the same story. That coherence, the word upholding the silence, is the most magnetic thing a human being can broadcast. And most entrepreneurs in Chase have a significant, if not massive, gap between the two. And now the question you're probably already asking. Okay, Chase, how do I actually close that gap, though? Thanks for calling me out. Here's how I do it today, this week, this month. Here's the reframe first. You do not raise your frequency by trying to act more magnetic. That's performance, and there's too much of that out there right now. People feel the gap between performance and reality immediately. You raise it by finding and changing the specific stories that are keeping your frequency locked where it is. And those stories are not in your head. They're in your body. Yogis call these stories samskaras, unfinished energy patterns. Something came in through your senses, triggered a response, and instead of being felt all the way through and released, it got held. And when it got held, the RAS built a story around it, a filter. And decades later, that filter's still running, shaping what you believe is possible, what you believe you're worth, what kind of clients you believe you can attract. And most people don't even realize it's there. That's the tricky part, because they've confused understanding the story with releasing it. I'll give you proof that this is not abstract. A client named Rob came to me with chronic tension in his upper back. Couldn't perform a full overhead squat. We worked through a specific childhood memory where he'd been in a defensive position, protecting himself. He felt a popping sensation in his upper back during the session. 48 hours later, Rob could perform a full depth overhead squat. Client named Brogan came to me for help with her business. Meanwhile, her chronic knee pain disappeared in real time during our first call. The body, in this case, is not a metaphor. The stories are stored in it. So here's the process. The same one I use in every one-on-one session. Step 1. Name the state you're actually operating from right now. Not the state you wish you were in. The actual one. Tired, resentful, anxious, proving, performing. Say it out loud and write it down. Most entrepreneurs have never done this. They've lived inside the state for years without giving it a name and without getting it out of their head and onto paper. Step 2, find the sentence underneath it. There's a story running in the background that is keeping that state locked in. Something like, I have to prove I'm good enough. If I don't hit this number, they'll see I'm a fraud. I have to outwork everyone or I'll lose it all. Every state has a story under it. Our job is to surface it. In step 3, question whose story it actually is, because it is almost certainly not yours. It came from a parent, a coach, a room when you were 14. You picked it up somewhere and have been carrying it as if it were a law of physics. It's not. It was never yours to carry. Step 4, you rewrite it in your own voice. This is where Abracadabra lives. With my word I create, not a performance affirmation, a true one. One your body can feel something when you say it. Because until the body believes it, the field doesn't change. And until the field changes, the broadcast doesn't change. And until the broadcast changes, neither do the clients. I want to be honest with you. This is the work. The kind of work that takes weeks and sometimes even months to fully take root. We're talking about decades of stories that we've been carrying, subconscious programming. A video can open the door. It cannot walk you through it. If this is landing, that door is open. What you do with it, though, that's the real question. Let me leave you with what the other side of this actually looks like. Because I want you to know what you are working toward. The first thing that changes when your frequency shifts is not the clients. It's how your body feels about getting up in the morning. There's a weight that was on your chest that starts to lift. The anvil is gone. Then downstream of that, the next thing is your content. You stop writing hooks you don't believe. You stop performing like a dancing circus monkey for your feed. The content gets simpler, more direct, more you, and none of that performative authenticity crap that we see out there. And it lands harder because of that, because people feel the coherence, the word upholding the silence. The same way they feel the gap when it doesn't. Then the clients start to change. They come in already sold. The sales calls get shorter. The objections get lighter. The energy in your DMs shifts. The people on your roster become people you are genuinely glad to see on your calendar. Because like Huygens clocks, you have become the most stable, most grounded rhythm in the room. And the rhythms around you are syncing to yours. Not because you forced it either. Because that is the law. This isn't something you can force. Harvard researchers showed that our emotional state actually ripples outward through our social networks 3 connections deep. People you have never met are measurably affected by the frequency you are running. The biggest clock in the room is not just setting the tone for the people in it. It's setting the tone for their world. And eventually, this is the part almost nobody warns you about, the business you used to grip and fight starts running in a way that feels almost suspiciously easy. Not because it is easy, because you are finally not fighting it from the inside out. The clients chasing you is not the goal, it's the byproduct. The goal is to become the person whose word creates the life they actually want. And the business is just one expression of that. Abracadabra. With your word, you create. So choose what you are creating. If this video landed for you, the next piece is the one that sits directly underneath all of this. Because the reason most entrepreneurs cannot raise their frequency is that they're gripping the very thing they're trying to magnetize. I made a whole video on that. It's called Detachment, and I believe it is the cheat code to success. Click this video here, wherever the editor put it on the screen. I walk through what detachment actually means, why most people have it completely backwards, and how it is the move that unlocks everything else you just heard. If this one helped you, that one is the natural next step. So I'll see you there.